Got to vote yes at the referendum. It's your homeboy Tiki on the rhythm. If you really wanna make change for the system, vote yes at the next referendum. Yeah. A little bit of intro music for you.
I got that all down too.
I can do you a better version at the end if you want to have something to run underneath it.
It was so casual and perfect. No real introduction needed for you, one of the most iconic faces in New Zealand. I've been to many gigs and experienced your ability to guide the energy of thousands. I truly can say thank you to all of us, man, honestly. I'm one of those ones in the crowd, and I've been there, I've experienced it, so it's always a gift.
That's lovely to hear, bro. That's why I do this stuff, for sure.
It brings an energy, you understand, it brings a lot of positive energy, and that's what we need more of, especially here in Aotearoa.
Absolutely.
So in my research, I found a band called Cultivation.
Yes.
It's safe to say you have been pro-cannabis for a while.
Yeah, Cultivation, that was my first band. I started when I was 14. And that came about because I was growing cannabis at 14. And I started smoking when I was 13. We'll take it back to that. So I was 13, started mucking around and smoking cannabis. And, I was already playing the guitar and I was already like, I want to be in a band. So I started this band with some like-minded friends when I was 14. Started growing cannabis at 14, which helped fund my band. And then by the time I was 15, we're talking 1991 here, 15, I did my first gig with my band at a pro-cannabis party, which was organised by Normal. Down
Chris Fowley.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's safe to say I've been a supporter of cannabis for a long time. And my relationship with cannabis is, I've always been absolutely decriminalise cannabis, and more in the last 10, 15 years I've been legalise cannabis. So I have kind of, my thoughts around it have evolved as well as I've gotten older and experienced more and seen the world and all that kind of stuff. And even to this day, I hardly smoke cannabis. Yeah. Hardly smoke cannabis. I might sort of once every fortnight have a couple of sneaky tokes here and there, but I do microdose CBD oil, which is pretty much every day, and it's been amazing for my well-being. So I've kind of over the years worked out where I'm at with it, and it's safe to say, man, I love cannabis. Cannabis is amazing.
That's awesome, and you can also support cannabis without actually using cannabis. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
To get across.
I think so too, and it's a really good point. You don't need to be a user of cannabis to support it. There's just so many amazing things that this plant can offer, and we're only just, scratching the surface with what we know about cannabis, with all the medical studies and scientific studies that are going on. There's so much more to this plant.
What made you change your mind? You said you were originally about decriminalisation. About 10 years ago, something switched where you believed in legalisation.
Yeah, I just, through my work, I'm a touring musician, so I travel around the planet a lot, and I started going to countries where cannabis was legalised and started to see what was happening there and reading about the stats of that and et cetera. And so that was kind of what swayed me to think, legalisation would be amazing here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I'm definitely voting yes at the referendum, for sure.
So you've actually experienced overseas models of legalisation. You've seen the world, and that's an important point to make, as a lot of people are talking from experiences, even though they've never been overseas to experience the legal market. A lot of people are talking from a fear-based place that they actually don't know much about. So I think it's really awesome to clarify that you don't just know the cannabis culture in New Zealand, you've actually experienced it overseas as well.
Yeah, overseas, I mean, it's part of being a musician. Cannabis and making music and playing music, they go hand in hand, so it's just around me all the time. So of course I'm gonna start learning more about it and seeing the effects on people and cultures, etc. So I got really interested in it, and that's why I thought, absolutely, Aotearoa, New Zealand would benefit from legalising cannabis.
So how has cannabis actually impacted your life then, would you say?
Okay, well, it's had a huge impact on me. Positive impacts are being that it's totally opened my mind up to a different way of thinking, having more connection to Mother Earth, Papatūānuku, also having more connection and clarity to and compassion and love for all beings, human beings, animals and plants. It's definitely opened up the way I think about things, the way I dress, the way I talk, the things that I do, the way I see life in general. So that's been something that's been really interesting with cannabis, how it's just unlocked a lot of those kind of things.
In a very positive way.
Yeah, absolutely, in a positive way. And musically, well, it's just totally unlocked a whole lots of different, creative pools of juices of, open up realms and doors and things like that without cannabis, I don't think my music, I wouldn't be able to reach those kind of heights and those different kind of experimental things, making music, tapping into lyrical stuff, sounds, styles of music. Cannabis has definitely helped with that. And it's also, I reckon it's enhanced my sort of sound, knowledge of sound, and stuff like that.
Just focusing on it more.
But also, there's nothing like listening to something really stoned. And I do lots of mixing, I do lots of creative things all the time, every day. And sometimes I'll go, okay, I might do the stoner test. So have a little toke, put on a mix and have a listen and go, oh my God, you know what I mean?
Well, it's either, whoa, that's so good, or what was I thinking? This is horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do the stoner test. I mean, obviously I spend 90% of the time straight, but there'll be that little bit where I like, okay, the mix is going great, it's sounding amazing, I'm just going to do the stoner test, have a few tokes, turn it up really loud, put headphones on and just kind of trip out and listen to it. And I find that you can really kind of get inside the sonics of the song and the creativity of it, and it takes you to another level, another realm. And I'll write notes and go, oh my God, I need to make that longer. Oh, that hi-hat sounds amazing, but I think I should really do that with it. Make these notes to it, and then, obviously fall asleep the next day, look at the notes and go, oh shit, and then go back in and readjust the mix a little bit. So
and then you can actually tap back into that mindset without actually using the cannabis again. Because you've got those notes from the way you were thinking when you were using it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about how cannabis has helped unlock those creative juices and that creative energy.
Do you think that's the same for a lot of artists?
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, there's the flip side of that where I've been too stoned and I just can't do anything. That's been my fault because I've probably just, smoked too much or something like that and went, okay, I need to go to bed now.
and it happens with alcohol too, right?
It's everything.
People drink too much, and I tell you, the negative side effects of getting too stoned is far, far, far less than the negative side effects of getting too drunk. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time at gigs, last 28 years I've been spending touring around the planet playing to millions and millions of people, right? And not once have I seen or experienced someone who's high on cannabis being a dick or being out of control or being a problem. But I guarantee every time I play a gig where there's alcohol involved, there will be some issue. There'll be some problem. Someone's drunken too much, is acting like a dick, you know what I mean? So that is just mind-blowing for me to kind of go, well, how come cannabis has got such a bad name where I've never ever seen, out of the millions of people I play to, one person act like an idiot or do something that's problematic compared to people on alcohol.
And the alcohol, you've got not just being a dick, you've got the violence, you've got the comatosing, the vomiting, the hospitalization, everything and so much more. You got cannabis and people try and relate the two. It's like, well, in reality, cannabis makes you chill, it makes you loving, it makes you just want to dance and listen to music and cuddle.
Yeah.
Always got to get that cuddle puddle in there, right? That's why I go to the festivals. Well, a good question would be then, in your life, how accessible has cannabis been in New Zealand?
From my life, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, to the point where I started smoking it at 13, got it off some friends. Friends' older brothers and sisters were growing it, a couple of plants here and there, and then I decided to grow it at 14. And then also where I was living and grew up was in Heathcote Valley in Christchurch. So there's the Port Hills. There's people growing plants in the Port Hills. You know what I mean? And then there's also orchards, lots of apple orchards and stuff like that. So people were growing in the orchards. I remember the guy across the road, we lived across the road from a dairy and a fish and chip shop. His name was Eddie. And he, you could go there and buy 2 scoops, 2 fish, can of Coke, and a tinny for $25.
That's as Kiwi as it
Those
gets.
are good old days, mate. So there's that stuff, So it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's easily accessible. It's there. It takes one text, one phone call, and then you've connected. So, it's just the reality of it.
And access is not difficult. That's the message I'm trying to get across to people is that a lot of the no voters are saying, oh, it's going to make access so much more easy for kids. No, it already is extremely easy. Like I'm from Invercargill, you're talking about Christchurch. Invercargill 15, easy to get.
Absolutely.
So much more difficult to get someone to buy you alcohol than it was to buy cannabis yourself. And people keep trying to relate the two. It's like, when was the last time you went and bought moonshine off someone because it was cheaper than alcohol in the store? It doesn't work like that. And so it's trying to get that messaging across to people is really important. Well, when did you learn about these medicinal properties of the plant? You say you've been using since you're 13, 14, 15. Is that how early on you knew that it could help you creatively, or is that came later in life?
Well, creatively, it was instant. I was like, this is... For me, smoking cannabis was like opening up a whole different realm, another dimension creatively. But medicinally, I didn't really start understanding that till probably my late teens, when I started to really get into reggae and dub music. And reggae and dub music is heavily influenced by the Rastafarian faith, the Rastafarian movement. And so I started listening to the messages that were in the lyrics, and that's when I started to understand, wow, they keep singing about ganja, the herb, the collie herb, sensimilia, and how it's medicinal and how it's good for this and good for that and that. So that's when I first started to really understand, okay, there's something else going on here. And then, throughout my life, I've had friends who have had, epilepsy, cancer, and the only real treatment that has helped them has been things like cannabis and CBD oil. For example, this young girl I did a benefit gig for, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she was 4 at the time, and the doctors gave her just a few months to live. They're like, she's not going to make it. So the parents decided to try her on cannabis, like CBD oil, and back then it was highly illegal and very expensive. So that's why I was doing benefit gigs. I do these gigs, raise some money so that they could buy this stuff, and which is totally illegal, right? This would end them up in jail. The seller, the supplier would end up in jail. But it was the only thing that would work for this young girl. So now she's about, 4 years later, she's about 8, and she's completely, no epileptic fits. She's starting to get motor skills in her hands. She's starting to write. She's starting to read. She's starting to get movement and, vocal movement and things like that. So it's not only saved her life, but it's made her life so much better. And so things like that are just like, wow.
It's
power
beautiful,
of this.
right?
Yeah,
it's right in front of your face.
So there's so much information out there about it and about how it can help, especially with Parkinson's disease, for the elderly, cancer, so many things that can really help people and help their well-being. Yeah.
And I think an important point is the elderly. A lot of people think, it has to be some kind of chronic illness like Parkinson's or epilepsy or MS. But in reality, old age comes with a lot of symptoms too. Yeah. And overseas, the only increase in use after legalisation has been the 65 plus year olds.
Right.
But yet in New Zealand, 65 plus, there's 70% voting no right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we get this messaging across to these people that this is going to be more medicinally beneficial for the elderly than it is actually going to be for the younger generation?
It's not their fault though. They come from a generation of massive amounts of anti-cannabis propaganda, right? We're talking they've been slammed and brainwashed with this. It's the devil's drug. Only dopes use dope, and it's not their fault that they're going to be voting no, because they've just been brainwashed with that information for so long. But they've got to remember, man, all the music that they love, like the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Beach Boys, all really high on cannabis. They made that shit. So they've got to kind of like go, you got to think about that as well. And also, it might come to a point where they do start suffering from Parkinson's, and they do start, getting certain kind of cancers and things like that, and perhaps some of the Western medicine isn't working. So, but then they find out that cannabis works. So, there's this. That's when they'll probably go, oh, okay, yes, I understand now. So if it's not affecting you directly, then a lot of them will just go put up the walls and go, no, I'm voting no. It's because, as I said, it's not their fault. They're just being brainwashed with that anti-cannabis propaganda that's been thrown at them from fucking many, many years ago, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's about getting out there and actually having these difficult conversations with Aotearoa. I think it's really important, and that's what I'm trying to motivate people, is to use their voice too. I'm just one voice, you're just one voice, but trying to get people out there to, within this last month, actually have this conversation. But it is a hard one. It is a really hard one.
It's challenging, really challenging.
What I want to ask is, because a lot of people who are voting no view a lot of harms of cannabis. I want to ask you what you see as the harms of cannabis.
Harms? Wetting your pants and laughing too much. That's a harm.
Eating too much food.
Eating too much. Yeah. You put the kids to bed at night, have a little toke, and you're making the kids' school lunches for the next day. Put it in the fridge, and then all of a sudden you get the munchies, and then you eat the kids' school lunch. And then that's not a harm. So yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. I mean, there's no evidence of anyone on the planet who's overdosed from cannabis, right? There's like, am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct. No one's ever died.
No one's ever died from smoking too much cannabis, but plenty of people die all the time from alcohol-related, diseases and drinking too much, all that kind of stuff.
Just straight overdose.
Straight overdose.
You just can die from drinking too much alcohol.
And then you look at all the prescribed drugs that are out there that the doctor can just willingly just give out left, right, and centre, and people will take willy-nilly. The amount of people that overdose on that stuff or get certain like kidney failures, liver failures, all that kind of stuff. So the harms for cannabis are super, super low. As far as what I can say in my experiences, I mean, people will touch on the whole, see these adverts on don't drive stoned and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, I'm a really good driver stoned. I'm safer, more courteous, more chill. There's no road rage. I'm a really good driver when I'm stoned, right? And at the end of the day, I would much rather get into a vehicle with someone who's stoned than someone who's drunk or who's been smoking pee. I guarantee that stoner will get me home. We might have to stop off at KFC, McDonald's on the way, but we'll get home safe and sound. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. There's a lot of misinformation. People just kind of throwing cannabis in the same hat as alcohol and all that other stuff when it's totally not. It should be completely over here in its own realm, right? You cannot tag the two together. It's just not going to work.
And it's hard because people who have never used cannabis before, they're talking from the experiences of alcohol and trying to compare their impairment as being the same, which is just not the case. You don't have that, especially the physical impairment with cannabis that you do with alcohol, the wobbling and falling over yourself and completely delirious, that doesn't happen. But how do you get that across to people that have never used it before? It's quite a hard one.
It's a tough one,
This leads me on to a question that I feel like only you could really answer because of all of your experiences. From your experience at all these festivals and giant parties that you've hosted, what actually is the most dangerous substance in New Zealand?
Alcohol. Alcohol is the one that will fuck people up and will make people do stupid things that they regret, that they're unaware of, that people get sloppy, messy, out of control, rude, arrogant, aggressive. That is easily the most harmful drug that's out there, and that's the one that's legal, right? And as I said before, I played in front of millions of people all around the planet, and I've never once had an issue or a problem with someone who was high or stoned on cannabis, not once. So I mean, that's just it's mind blowing when I talk to people about that. It's like, come on, this is crazy.
The proof is right in front of your face.
Yeah, right in front of me. Yeah. Right, I see it all the time. I jump up on stage, whether it be 30 people or 30,000 people. It's there. You can see it. It's right in front of your face. People just being so normalized. It's been so normalized. Alcohol drinking, binge drinking, it's just been normalized. So just don't really look at it as an issue when we really should be. That's the actual main problem, you know.
And in reality, I think that because people say, oh, we don't want to bring in another harmful substance. Well, no, what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to not drink alcohol and actually turn to cannabis. And that is a better option, hands down. I'm sure at your festivals, you'll see at the front, the drunk people in the mosh pit bashing each other and going crazy. Yeah. And then see that smoke ring at the back end where everyone's just chilling, cuddling, blankets on. And you want more of that energy, that safe, relaxing energy. But again, people that have never tried cannabis, how are you supposed to explain that to them? So that moves on to, let's talk about why.
Can I ask, you guys are both gravitated to the middle, is that okay?
Oh, like facing each other?
Yeah, we're probably getting closer and closer.
Cuddling.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do you want me to
Don't move the camera, we'll just move out.
Okay.
Is that better?
Cool. So, see, whenever you talk, you move forward.
I do,
Yeah.
So you can move it a little, you can move a little bit.
Sorry.
We'll get it so into it.
There you go.
I can feel you, man. Perfect.
You got the Southland perfect.
I do, bro. I roll my R's big time. I've tried to enunciate my words a lot more.
Keep it, man. Own it.
I'm proud to be from Southland. I really am.
Own it.
It's it's very noticeable. Well, that leads us into talking about the reasons why people are actually voting no, which we kind of touched on it before, but we can touch on this more now. The fear of youth getting access. We both understand it's very accessible, very easy to get. By bringing it into a regulated, controlled market, we're actually going to force people to use IDs to actually know what's going to be in the cannabis, control it, regulate it just like alcohol. Do you have anything to add to that point of youth access?
At the end of the day, I mean, youth are going to have access to everything, no matter what generation it is. It's going to happen. So no matter how many sort of restrictions or roadblocks you put in front, there's always going to be that, especially if it's illegal, right? I mean, that's half the buzz. Half the buzz is the fact that it's illegal. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's illegal. Oh, it's illegal. You know, I mean, that's the buzz, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So making it legal would just be, you know, it's not going to, you know, it's not going to like make people want to smoke it even more. It could even have the opposite effect. It could make you just kind of go, nah, you know what I mean? Or it could just normalize it a little bit more. So it's not like this exciting, naughty thing anymore. It just becomes a normalized thing.
You're not rebellious anymore for using it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing, youth are always going to be rebellious. It's what youth do. I mean, good on them. Just rebel, you know. It's part of what we do as youth, you know. It's like, that's just the way it is. So you just kind of got to get your head around that and make peace with it. The thing is, that really, really needs to happen is education. And education around safe drug use, safe alcohol use, even as far as healthy relationships, online pornography, all these things that our kids, our youth are exposed to, needs to be more education around it. It needs to be more education for the parents, like myself, and how we open that dialogue with our kids. And so my kids, you know, they're 9 and 11. We've already had massive amounts of conversations about cannabis, about drugs, about alcohol, about all these internet, safety on internet. So we're trying to really have that conversation with our kids so that they can let us know if they experience something they're unaware of, or if they've seen some stuff, or they need help or advice. We've just got to want to be able to keep that dialogue open and having that safe place where they can turn to us and talk to us about it. And that, I think, is the key, is having that education for not just the youth, but for us parents as well, and how we can connect with our kids. Yeah.
Creating a safe space where, as kids, we can feel safe going to our parents and telling them that we have a problem. Because any harms people do relate to cannabis, it comes from it being in the shadows and people feeling fear from actually coming up and saying, I have a problem, I need help, because of the illegal side of it, right?
Sure.
So opening up this door to allow this conversation, not just with your parents, but your teachers, with even with your friends, you know, hey, I'm having this experience. Does anyone have any advice or education about it? But right now it's so taboo that we're all just expected to go into the dark room and experience whatever bit of side effects we have by ourselves.
Yeah. Which is how I learned, you know, right? It was just doing it sneakily down at the park behind the bike sheds, whatever, you know, and just kind of learning, gaining experiences from experiencing it and experimenting. And You know, it's like, at the end of the day, I'm like to my kids, look, I'd rather you don't do this stuff, but more than likely you will. You'll come to a position or situation in life where it's in front of you. Maybe it's your friends or whatever, or someone that you really, you're one of your best friends, or you say your partner, maybe you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, etc., and you get that peer pressure thing going on. I'd rather you wouldn't do it, but if you do, let me know how it goes. Here's the education around it. This is what I think you need to do. If you're going to have a smoke on a joint, just have one toke, and feel free to call me if you're freaking out. If any of your friends are freaking out, give me a call. No questions asked. I'll come and help you, and I'll help your friends, and we can talk about it. And instead of just being that whole, don't you bloody smoke it, and if you do, I'll kick your fucking ass. So what's a kid going to do? They're going to smoke it, but they're going to do it privately, and they're not going to let you know. They're going to hide it from you, and that creates more issues, right? That creates more issues. So just having that open dialogue about it, and education is key. Education is key about cannabis use, safe use, and not just for the youth, but for us parents as well.
We kind of touched on this before earlier as well, and that was driving high. People are concerned about driving high, and also working high. One thing I want to just put out there before we even start talking about this part is, it is currently illegal to drive high.
Yeah.
That's not going to change. It's still not okay to go to work high. That's not going to change. Just like you can't go to work drunk. So a lot of people have this weird concept that we're just going to open this free-for-all, and all of a sudden everyone's going to be high all the time. What would you have to say about people's fears about driving high and working high?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the working high part, I mean, obviously, you're asking the wrong person here. I'm a musician. I'm a musician. I mean, it enhances the experience if you're high and if you're at my gig and the things like that. So you're asking the wrong person here. If you want to get high, then go for it. Obviously, driving, it's a different kettle of fish. I mean, I've just come from that school of just driving high since I was young, right? And so I've just learned, you know, I mean, this is good and bad. I've learned how to do it, and I've learned how to do it and be safe and all that kind of stuff.
And what's your limits? What you can actually...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's up to you to say, look, this is enough. I'm not actually going to drive right now. I'm going to chill out.
Absolutely. Get an Uber, get someone else to drive.
Same with alcohol, right? You have a couple too many drinks, you're like, actually, I'm going to stop.
Same thing. Exact same thing. I went out for dinner last night. I had 2 beers, and I was like, that's it. I don't need any more, but I can still drive.
Yeah.
Same thing. If ganja was legalized, go out for dinner, might have some cannabis, you know, infused sort of a meal, and get a little bit, oh, okay, well, that's enough there, that's cool, no more for me, I can still drive. So it's just that common sense, it's that education around it.
Common sense, I think, is a key word.
It's common sense. Yeah, it's a key word.
We'll move on to mental health. I don't know about you personally, but I have quite a lot of anxiety. I've gone through some depressive states in my life, and I've used cannabis to help with all those symptoms. And it's quite frustrating when people say, oh, cannabis causes depression. It's like, well, no, I think the depression came first, and then people are using cannabis for that depression.
Yeah.
And your experiences with cannabis and mental health, where do you see does it positively affect, negatively affect? Has it ever helped you, people close to you?
Yeah, well, you know, I see it as, I mean, everyone's different. You know, each individual has a different story to tell, or they're in a different sort of place in their life, I guess, right? So I know cannabis has helped many people for anxiety, for depression, for helping them to relax, helping them to stay calm, etc., right? But then I've also known cannabis to also sort of enhance paranoia, anxiety for people. And so once again, it's like, well, you kind of got to use common sense around it, and there's got to be more education around it. Obviously, if you suffer from some sort of like psychosis or like schizophrenia, things like that, I think it's probably not a good idea to get punched in cones, you know what I mean?
Well, same, just like it's not a good idea to go out and smash alcohol or take psychedelics.
Absolutely.
Or even caffeine can affect those people negatively.
Absolutely. So it's just getting the education around it, getting the right sort of medical, I don't even know what you can say about it, some sort of like...
facilities and...
Yeah, facilities, and it just, that's going to come with time as well. But you know, all in all, for me, I think cannabis has helped me immensely. especially CBD oil, right? That is for my well-being, has helped my well-being incredibly. So I know it works for me. This is how much I take. This is when I take it. It does this to me. Awesome. That's, I understand it. So it's one of those things that you just gotta, it's trial and error a lot of the time. And
whereas that trial and error, just like to say, for us, it's been in a legal market where it's like, weed's weed. I don't know what this is going to do to me, but we'll find out. And then people can have these negative experiences. Yeah. Whereas in a legal market, you're going to know what strain it was, how potent it was, absolutely, how much CBD and THC is in it. And that strain is, if it gives you a negative effect, you stay away from it. It's just like some people claim that, when I drink whiskey, I get violent, and they stay away from whiskey. Yeah. Exactly the same concept.
Same thing about prescribed drugs as well, right? Some people have certain effects to codeine or certain effects to tramadol, etc., and they stay away from it, right? So, I mean, for example, my partner Rachel, she has endometriosis, and sometimes it's crippling for her. She's lying on the floor in pain, cannot move. She can't take tramadol because that fucks with her, and codeine does as well, but the only thing that works is cannabis. She'll have a few tokes on that, half an hour later, she's up, she's moving, she's functioning. She can go to work, she's a social worker. Also, she works in schools teaching sexual health and rape prevention in schools, right? So essentially, she's breaking the law by taking this cannabis, which is actually helping her and making her a functioning human being, So it's just a no-brainer, man. Vote yes, it's a no-brainer.
A guy I interviewed recently, Brad Smell, he's actually quadriplegic, and he has a lot of pains in his stomach as well, that only cannabis works to help. And also a lot of women say that their period cramps, the period pains get helped massively by cannabis. So it's all very related. Yeah,
it's a magical plant. I mean, it's one of the most amazing plants on the planet. And it's crazy how it's been pushed aside into this negative realm for so long, and it's like, come on, let's use this incredible plant to help us human beings and help the well-being of people. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward.
Back to that common sense. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not very common. One point I would like to talk to you about.
Is this supposed to be on?
Yeah.
Turn it off. Yeah, it's all good. Woo! Right. Are we in this? Yeah, I think I'll stay out here.
Same the spots.
Yeah.
Alright, well, it is what it is. Life, right? You just gotta smoke it away later. So the point we're at was there's people in the black market that are saying they're going to vote no because they don't want their piece of the pie taken. They're fearful of big business and government control. Yeah. Do you have any messaging you'd like to say to those people?
It's one of those things, we don't have the answers for it. But
with the legislation, they are trying to put as many controls in as they can. Like they've got a 20% market limit, so no company is allowed to have more than 20% of the market share.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Then there's also two different cultivation licenses. One is industrial size, but one's going to be for a smaller size. It's called a micro cultivation license, which means small time growers are going to be able to always have their place, and that cap is never going to be able to be taken from the cultivation industrial size section. So that's up to 220 pounds you're allowed to grow.
That's awesome. Okay, so I see once again, I don't know that, so that is really awesome.
The thing is, we've just got to get these messaging out to these people so they understand that they're always going to have a place. And 220 pounds is a lot. I don't know a lot of people that are going to want to grow.
What does that even look like? It's like, oh my god.
Well, I think another focus we should talk about is over 30% of 18 to 30-year-olds don't vote. So how do we motivate the youth to get out and vote?
Well, I mean, you could do what the record labels do and target TikTok influencers and throw a whole lot of money at them and say, hey, why don't you do a go out and vote TikTok dance, and then all of a sudden the kids will go, yeah, that's cool, it goes viral, millions of kids watch it, and then they're educated about it and this. I mean, that's pretty much how it happens these days.
So making it cool, you've got to try and make voting
cool. Yeah,
you've
got to make it cool, you've got to get it in their faces, and what are they doing most of the time? They're on social media looking at TikTok. TikTok is just like, man, it's so influential. like that controls a lot of the music industry, and the songs that are becoming number one and massive hits are usually because they've got an influencer on TikTok doing a TikTok dance to that song, right? So that song goes boom, charts, everyone's buying it, everyone's streaming it. So it's just trying to work out how to use that online medium to be able to tap into the youth sort of demographic and try to get them engaged and get them voting and get them into it. That's the only way I can see it happening.
Yeah. So motivating you through social media, which is what we're doing here.
Well, we're trying to, yeah.
We're trying our hardest to use social media because it is so powerful. People don't realize that the abilities we have to get messaging out there, sharing with your friends and family so that we can educate as many as possible and make it cool. Make this, the whole point of me being here is to try and make this conversation cool for people to actually see it as something worthwhile talking about.
We're talking, real shit, really. I mean, not beating around the bush. And I can only talk from my experience of what I've seen and what I've learned over the many years I've been doing this kind of thing, you know. And I have, as I said, being a musician, music and cannabis go hand in hand. I mean, it's there, it's around me all the time. I see it all the time, so...
in an article I read, it said that your mum has never used cannabis.
Yeah, she's never used it.
Same as my mum. My mum's never used, born and raised in Invercargill, Catholic woman, never used. But she actually has fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis and takes a lot of pharmaceuticals that are killing her. Yeah. And I'm trying to get across to her the power of medicinal cannabis, but she's so against it.
Wow.
It comes back to this point of the older people. How do we get across to them? Because, like I said earlier, 70% of them are voting no.
Well, I mean, my mum's will be voting yes. I mean, that's the thing. She's never used cannabis. She doesn't have any interest in it. She doesn't want it, but she's voting yes because she understands where I'm coming from with it. And, you know, I mean, she supported me. I was telling you earlier about my first gig was in my band called Cultivation. We played at a pro-marijuana organised gig by Normal, right? And she was there with her camera filming it, standing on a chair in a cloud room full of cannabis smoke. She's filming me, you know what I mean? So she's been around it, but she's not like against it. And she probably can see through what I've been talking about and what she's read and what she's learned via the internet and things like that, for her, she's like, yeah, absolutely. She's going to be voting yes. And she's never used it, doesn't want to use it, but she can see the positives absolutely outweigh the negatives. And so, you know, for your mum, I mean, that's tough, man. I mean, because you understand, you have the education and knowledge of what cannabis could do to improve her well-being, but she's just like, no, don't want to take it. And hey, Kate Pai, that's her reason. I mean, if she's not going to open up to that, she's not going to open up to that. So
I think a good approach would be, though, what you just said is that your mum supports you. She's seen the benefits of cannabis in your life, and by having that relationship, you're able to convince her to vote yes, even though she doesn't use it herself. And I think that's a message to get across to everyone out there, is to go have this conversation with your mum. If you think strongly about cannabis and you think it's got a lot of medicinal properties, you should go and have a good kōrero with your parents, because when they look into your eyes and see how much you care about something, that could sway them. That definitely could sway them, even if they've never used cannabis before. So you've said you've had cannabis in your life forever, ever since you're young, plus now in the music industry, festivals, gigs, everything. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Prohibition, therefore, has not worked, but it has had a very negative effect on Aotearoa, and especially the Māori community. From your experiences in life, what are the negatives you've seen of Prohibition on Māori?
I mean, that's such a complex and massive, so many layers to it, right? I mean, you just got to go back to, take cannabis out of the situation, and you go back to the core problems and core issues, which are basically, you know, hundreds of years of racism, and you got the trauma, that's generational trauma from that. You've got colonization, having to navigate through colonization, the effects that that's had on us as Māori, and you look at the broken justice system and how that has been designed to oppress Māori as well. So you throw in alcohol and drugs into that whole mix, and the outcome for Māori is going to be very negative, right? Compared to, say, someone of white privilege. So there's so much to it. There's so much stuff that we've got to get to the bottom of it. We can't just go pinpoint it on cannabis, etc. These underlying issues that are causing us as Māori to be disproportionately represented in prison and things like that, right? So, I mean, I'm no expert on it, but those are the things I've learned, those are the things I've read about, those are the things I feel, those are the things I see. And so you've got to go back to the core stuff, and it's the core stuff of the colonization and the racism and the broken justice system, which is what is really affecting Māori.
Yeah, and I think a good point to bring it up is, actually, I've never said this on camera before, but I feel like it's the right time, about the white privilege, because I have experienced being in a vehicle where we'd all just smoked cannabis. We got pulled over by the police. The police found the cannabis and they let us go.
Right.
And I remember thinking at that time, like, holy shit, how that could have gone so much worse for us all, and how I literally wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you and having the discussion if that police officer decided in that moment to go forward and prosecute us. Unfortunately, the stats show that when it's a Māori on the other end of that, it's a much higher likelihood that the police does not give discretion and does arrest them. And right now we have 48%, I think is the number, of convictions for cannabis are Māori, even though we only have 20% population of Māori. So it shows that there is a systemic racism within our police force. And that's not saying all police are racist, that's just saying when that split decision moment comes and you decide, do I let this person go or not, they tend to not let the Māori person go, and they tend to let someone like myself go. And that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable
awesome,
at all.
bro. Thanks for sharing that too. And that's the thing, it's like, we're living, it's heavy, eh? we're living in a time where we can start talking about this stuff and actually challenging ourselves, and especially someone like yourself, my partner who is Pākehā. She's really trying to understand that and really talk about that, the white privilege and the difference that she's been treated compared to, say, someone of colour. And that, just as I said, it's just such a heavy, thick layer, and it's gone on for generation and generation and generation, and it just can't be changed like that. But we're making the right steps forward by talking about it and by verbalizing it and trying to understand it, and not pointing the fingers and not doing this. It's actually, okay, well, this is a fucking issue. It involves everybody. How can we all make this better? So I mean, that's my kōrero on that whole buzz, eh? Yeah.
I think it's also important to bring up the points that, maybe not. Maybe I won't go into it any further.
Yeah, cool.
I guess it's going to be a bit touchy on how deep you go into something like that.
Yeah. I think that was cool. I just wanted to get that across as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, having laughs and stuff, but it's actually, that's kind of really the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, and also what voting yes is going to do is it's going to actually help the Māori get out of this systemic racism with the police, because all of a sudden your relationship with the police isn't going to be so negative, because you're not fearful of getting caught for using a plant.
Yeah,
that's a really big one. That perception we have of police needs to change from you're my enemy to actually we can be friends.
Yeah, you're my brother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen when we're constantly having these unjust laws chasing people for using a plant that 500,000 Kiwis use, and 500,000 Kiwis use that proportionally even. It's not more Māori that use it than Pākehā, but yet the Māori are the ones being prosecuted. And if you believe that's wrong, vote yes. It's that simple. It's that simple. If you think New Zealand needs to change and we need to stamp out this systemic racism, whether it's soft racism or hard racism, whatever you want to consider it, a vote yes is how we're going to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cheer, my brother. Yes.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Awesome.
That leads me actually onto the final question, which is, what is the final message you would like to say to New Zealanders leading up to the vote?
It's a no-brainer, really. For me, it's the evidence is there, scientific, medical, social evidence is there to vote yes. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like prime ministers smoke it, presidents smoke it.
Everybody
smokes it. You've got school teachers, the principal of the school smokes it, social workers smoke it, high-powered, successful business people smoke it. sports people smoke it. You know, I mean, you just go on and on and on. And they're all functioning, they're all doing well. It's not hurting them. It's, in fact, it could be helping their well-being. So it's just that the whole thing about the education around it.
There's a lot of fear for those people, though, to actually come out and say publicly that they use, and that's why I appreciate you today saying that you actually, I use cannabis, and I have used cannabis, right? So how do we convince others who do use cannabis regularly to actually stand up right now in this dying last couple of weeks before the vote and say, yes, I use cannabis, because everyone's so scared?
So I guess don't be afraid, you know. I mean, you know, a lot of people are probably afraid that, oh my God, we'll lose my job, or what would the community think of me, all that kind of stuff. But I think you'd be quite surprised if you popped your head up and said, yeah, I've used cannabis. You might see an old mate down the road go, oh, me too. And you're like, really? I don't think you would. Well, I don't think you would. And then you might start this little wee chain reaction, this little community, because it's not a bad drug. It's not the devil's drug. I mean, you're not gonna, that's the crazy thing about it. It's actually a beautiful plant. It has so many incredible properties and medicinal values to it. It does so many amazing things for people, and it's saved lives and it's changed people's well-being for the better. So
it's not just save the well-being of Aotearoa, but the economy as well. I think that's a really big focus that people are ignoring, is the fact that we're about to go into a worldwide recession. We need jobs, we need income, we need economy, and that can all come from a legal cannabis industry.
It's just a no-brainer, you know. I mean, people can throw up all the arguments they want, and in Kei they can do that, but often that will come from a place of fear and a place of not knowing or being fed the wrong kind of information.
Yeah. What's the final message you would like to say to New Zealand leading up to the vote?
Just get out there and vote, and vote yes. Vote yes on this, and engage in this topic, in this kōrero right now. Like it, comment on it, share it, start talking about it, start, you know, spreading the word, especially about getting out and voting yes at this next referendum. That's the message, really. And if you're still unsure, if you're still on the fence, then there's so much education out there and so much stuff online that you can learn about, scientific, medical studies, all that kind of stuff. That information is really be available for you. So go out and check it out. But most importantly, get to that referendum, vote yes, and let's get on with our lives. Share.
Sweet, and there we go.
There we go.
Get out there, vote, use your voice, have these difficult conversations with your parents, with your work colleagues, with your friends. Share this, spread the message through social media. It's so, so powerful. You have no idea. If you reach 3 people and they reach 3 people, it's the pay it forward effect. We've reached thousands. And it is 2.8 million people voted last election. That means 1% of the vote is 28,000 people. Right now it's 50-50. If you can be one of that 28,000 people that votes yes, we swing the vote, we have a yes vote. New Zealand's whole future is changed forever, for the better. Word. So get out, vote. Appreciate you, brother.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And cut.
Yee!
Awesome.
Man. Nice whip, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, word.
Hopefully everything's all good.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Yeah, we can get that intro video if you like. What I'll do is I'll handhold it.
Okay, I'll come up. Yeah.
I'll get up close.
I'm trying to think. Give me 1 second. Trying to come
You're
up
good.
something.
I'll just get your hand. I'll just get
yes.
B-rolls of your hand.
Bless. Vote yes. Bless. Oh, yes. What's the miss? Nothing but love. What is that? Legalize it. Yeah. Don't you criticize it. Legalize it. Yeah. And I will advertise it. Yes. You got to legalize it. Aotearoa. Don't you criticize it. No, no. Legalize it. Yeah. And I will advertise it. Yes, sir. Coming at ya. We got nothing but love when we hit him. Tiki come upon the rhythm, yes. If you wanna make change to them system, you got to vote yes at the referendum. Woo! We coming at you live like this. Bless, vote yes. It's all a mess until you vote yes. Woo! Coming at you, Buzzy Kiwi. Big up all the people watching right now, tuned in. Don't forget to get yourself out there and vote yes at the referendum. Oh, realize it. Yeah. Don't you criticize it. No. Legalize it. Yeah. Yeah. And I will advertise it. Alright, come with the rhyme. Watch this one. Yo, check it, check it. I got nothing but love when we hit him. It's your homeboy Tiki on the rhythm. If you wanna make change to them system, you got to vote yes at the referendum. Yes. Politicians smoke it. Prime Minister smoke it. Presidents smoke it. Lawyers smoke it. Judges smoke it. Even the police smoke it. Even the bro that sells the fish and chips, he smokes it. Even the sister owns the dairy down the corner, she smokes it. Even the teacher smokes it. Social workers smoke it. Sports people smoke it. You know what I'm getting at? Cause everyone's smoking. Everyone's doing fine. That's why we got to legalize it. Yeah. Don't you criticize it. No. Legalize it. Yeah, and I will advertise it. That's right, Aotearoa. Legalize it, vote yes, less.
That was so
good, brother. Maybe the last half of that was probably all good, but yeah.
That's what jamming's all about, though.
I kind of got a vibe on that last bit. But yeah, sweet as.
Yeah, it's so talented.
That could be like your sign off or an intro, whatever you want to do.
Or it could even be its own standalone thing.